Hello, this is the course of Information System Development, and I would like to continue the material about the XML and JSON. And in the previous video, we already learned about the XML schema for the data about book, and yeah, you also learn about the schema for the JSON. So we already learned about how we can deal with the data. And in this example, we have the data only about the book. So I would like to continue to discuss more things. If you are dealing with the XML and JSON, you need to know that in both of them are different in terms of the properties. So in the XML, you need to define every element. You can see here you have the XS. Okay? So XS is, we call it as the schema, XML schema, and then every of them will have the element. And let's say this is the title, and then we have the type is string. Okay. So whenever we want to define the data type, yeah, we need to put the type here. We need to put the type here. So you can see this maximum occurrence is 5. And if you are dealing with the JSON, yeah, you still need to define the type, which is string, and then this is the type is array, and then you can have, yeah, this is string, this is string, even though we have the pattern, so we call this is the regex. Regex is the regular expression. Yeah. And yeah, you know that this kind of data type is supposed to be in any computer programming languages, not like Python. For example, in Java, you need to define integer. Okay, you need to define whether it is a double or whether you are using the character. Okay, but in Python, you don't need to define the data type. In JavaScript, you do not need to define the data type because this is about the data. Yes, because this is about data format. That's why the JSON provide the data type. It is to is the developer. It means the developer should know what kind of data type for this attribute. And if you understand those concepts, yeah, every time we define the data type, both of XML and JSON, they have similarity. So for example, now you can see this is the format of JSON. And if you are dealing with the XML, yeah, the way to define the data type is different, but it shows the same that this attribute title is using string. Okay. And then yeah, we can also see the outers. Outers, we want to define that it is an array. Okay. Instead of array in XML, they define with only element, and there is one more attribute or property to mention that the maximum occurrence is 5. In this case, yeah, we have 1 until 5, and the type is string. So the same, we have the type is string. What about the date? Yeah, the date, you can particularly mention about the date. For example, I want to specify string. Actually, you can also specify with date type. Yeah, it depends on your data in the date time, because usually in the full format you may have something like 20, 21, okay, and then dash, maybe let's say 20, this is May, and then for example 6, like this one. Okay, then yeah, this format is using the date format with the year, month, and date. And maybe you will see something like 2021, and then May, and then 6 May, and then you will see like 10/30. Okay, so something with date. So that kind of type is also available. Okay. It depends on how you define the data. If we are using this pattern, we are using the regex, the regular expression. It means I want to have the data 0 until 9. So it means this is only digit. So the digit means we have only numbers. The numbers between 0 until 9. And we want to have only 4 digits. Okay, 4 digit means, yeah, if you are dealing with the year, so it means only 2021. So something like that one. Okay, and we want to see the publisher. Let's say we already set the publisher into some list. So the publisher will be only these 3 selection, whether it is Springer or MIT Press or Harvard Press. So that's why there's this kind of way to define the selection. Okay? We can define in the schema. So you can see here. The restriction for the publisher is that there are 3 publishers: Springer, MIT Press, and Harvard Press. In this case, we are using array. So there will be no other choice than these 3 options. If you can see the minimum occurrence is 0, it means it can be just null. Okay. So in the schema language, yeah, of course, you need to understand that the XML schema is written in XML and the JSON schema is written in the JavaScript object notation. And yeah, you can also use the Bootstrap, the schema language. And there's a kind of converter. What is converter? Converter means I want to convert, I want to change from XML, for example, to the JSON. So if I have this XML, okay, I want to change this XML into the JSON format. How can we change it? Yeah, you can use the online. For example, this is one tool. You can just access this one, freeformatter.com. And when you give this XML, okay, you can change it to this kind of JSON. Okay. Now, if you see this, it is a book, and then there is an ID, MCD, for example. And this ID stands for the title. Actually, it's a modern compiler design. And let's say the author is this guy, and then the publisher is Springer. So based on our knowledge, we know that this title is this one, so we can just have this title, and this is the author, and then this is the publisher. So they are representing the same attribute, but the ID, okay, in the ID section, because it is the ID in the tag, XML tag, okay, so it is the ID in the XML tag. So the properties here should go to somehow, it is the encoding, okay. So there is a need to encode the XML attribute into the attribute name in JSON. So it gives symbol to represent the ID. Yep, that kind of things is just the detail how they can do the formatting from XML to JSON. If you want, if you have interest on this domain, yeah, you can just utilize the freeformatter.com. Yeah. So in the remaining section, I will try to comply with either XML and JSON, because some of the website, they are still using XML. And many of the current websites, they already apply with the JSON, and I think it is good for you to know how to apply XML and how to apply the JSON. So let's see what we can do. So in this section, I would like to explain about the Django REST framework. In the Django REST framework, in the first time, I would like to explain about API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So the API is a set of clearly defined methods, and it is for communication among various components. It means if you are having one component, let's say I have my printer, okay, and then you can connect with Bluetooth, for example, or you can connect with your USB, or you can connect with cable, or maybe you can connect through the Wi-Fi. Then it means the printer has an API. So that API is connected to other devices, so you can print in your printer. There are some ways to access other components. For example, we can use the method get. Yeah, we can use method like set and create and etc. So if you learn the object-oriented programming, we can have this kind of method. And the communication, it can be among various devices. So whenever you provide an API, so you can communicate with that device. So if you don't have the API, you cannot communicate with the device. So there are two types of the way of the communication. We can use SOA, which is the service-oriented architecture. And the other way of communication is ROA, resource-oriented architecture. So for the data exchange, it requires a protocol. Okay? Protocol means a kind of bridge. Okay? And we have SOAP and REST. There are two common protocol. Actually, there are still other protocol, but I think two of them will be the representative for our course. We call it SOAP or SOAP. Okay. It is stand for Simple Object Access Protocol. So we want to send a message, and the message will be in the protocol for exchanging structured information in the implementation of web services in computer network. Yeah, there should be a kind of object. Okay, the simple object, it can be represented with an attribute, okay, or it can be represented with a very simple variable name, and then you will access the web service, and then you can go to other computer, or you can go to other devices. The other way of the protocol is using REST. We call it REST because it is stand for the representational state transfer. So the first person who coined this terminology is Roy Fielding. He described an architecture style of the network system. So when we deal with the protocol, so it is only the bridge, or it is only the way to communicate. And once we have this API, then we need to determine whether we are going to use the SOAP or we are going to use the REST. Most of the application now, they are applying with REST API. Okay. It means we can deal the data from other devices, and then we want to see the state. We want to see the current data, and once we see the data, then we can put on the web to transfer every data into other devices. So what does it mean? So let's see. Okay. In the API, actually, there are many kind of API. The first type of API is private API. It means the API is for the internal company. And then the other kind of API is partner API. So we have a specific business partners, and Let's say, yeah, if you are using your application, maybe Uber Eats, okay, or maybe yeah, some just other kind of application. Yeah, I give you some link here. You can take a look on this link. This is the Uber API. Okay, so if you want to take a look, so let's see this one. So this Uber provide you this API, and they give you the way to access the API. And you can see this one, they provide this application ID and tokens. Okay, so they provide how to access this ID, how can you access the client secret, and then how can you access the server token. And then they have this API for any programming languages, for example, Curl or Python or Java or iOS or Android. So this API is available in every application nowadays. So if you are using like Kupang, or if you are using the Paymin, or if you are using uh, any application in Korea, they provide this one. And if you want to check like the neighbor, Kakao Talk, so they also have this kind of API, and you can reuse it for your purpose. So some of the API is free, but some of the API you need to pay some money because it is for the business. Yeah. So that's why if I get back to this slide, if it is a partner API, it means there will be a kind of business model. So you need to pay some money. For example, in the neighbor API, it is limited to access the map.neighbor. Maybe if I remember, you can access about 1,000 data for one day. If you want to access more than that one, then you need to pay more money. Let's say, I'm not sure how much you should pay for that one, but I guess it is still reasonable. And the amount of the payment will be depending on the number of variables. For example, if you access 100 data, then maybe you will pay like 10 won. And then if you have another 100 data, you will pay more 10 won. So it means 20 won and so on. So it means the higher data that you access, you will pay more. So that's about the partner API. We can just use the public API. Okay? The API is available for the use of the public. So for example, Google Books, they provide the API. Okay? And then yeah, you can also try with other kind of API. For example, weather API is also free. Okay? So if you in your team project you are considering to use this kind of API, you can search about the API. And in the API, actually there are some elements. So the API contains components, connectors, and data. So the components is about the proxy, gateway. So it's very technical, okay? And connectors is about how to connect the client, for example, our client, or you want to connect the server. And about the data, there are some resources or representation and etc. Okay. So whenever you have this kind of things, maybe it will be very confusing because our domain is not in the computer science. We are in the industrial and management engineering. So that's why I want to simplify this one. Let's just use REST. Okay. So in the REST framework, we can ignore some components implementation detail. So we don't need to care about the proxy. We don't need to care about gateway. So I don't need to know about those one, but I just need to know about what is the ID, what is the password, and it's enough. Okay, and then it will focus on only the components, the roles of the components. Means once I can access to your system, then I can interact. I can do the interpretation of the data element. So I don't need to care about whether it is using the SSL or whether it is using the gateway 007 or something. Yeah. So it will be very time consuming for you to learn all those things. So in the API, there can be three things. Okay, the first is about the resources, and the other is about the URI. It stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, or sometimes they call it the URL, but it's a little bit different with the URI. So the URI is specific for one person, and web page, which is the HTML. So when you have this tree, okay, maybe I can say something like this one. So you have the client, okay, and then you have the resources. So these resources, it can be any resources. So you can go, for example, this one, there is one website, any API. Okay, so let's see if I'm dealing with this any API, and then yep, you can have any API for your system. For example, you want to use the dictionary. Okay, you can also use this one. And NBA statistics. So if you are the basketball maniac, so you can see this one, the NBA statistics. If you want to access the Spotify, so if you want to listen to music, but I guess Korea has limitation on the Spotify API. Tracker, it is the open source GPS tracking platform, so you can make your own navigation. Yeah. And books, Rotten Tomatoes, Instagram, and etc. So this website provide a lot of API, and some of them are limited, but some of them they are totally free. So you can utilize this kind of API. Okay? And let's suppose you try to access the resources, and yeah, I'm just using this example. Okay, so this is one example from one weather website. Oops. Oh, maybe they already down. Okay. Yeah, sometimes the some API is down. Okay. Okay, I think I will not use that one because I don't know. There's something wrong with the API. Anyway, you can search other API, and let's suppose we have this API. Maybe in the first place, you already know about the API, about the okay. So you already know about the API for. Oh, sorry. Uh, so you already know any API from the website. For example, you want to access the Google or the Oxford Dictionary and etc. And then, yeah, let's say I want to access the API here. In the previous example, we also have the ESPN. Okay? So you can also use that kind of resources. And then after we have that API, we want to return back to our HTML. So I want to utilize the existing information, and I want to put it into my HTML file. So I don't need to build my own database. I don't need to build my own resources. It's just I use the existing resources. I use the other resources. For example, I use the resources from Kakao. I use the resources from Naver. So I use the resources from Amazon. And then I put all those things into my web. And yeah, we call this kind of things is the representational state transfer. Okay? So using this representational state transfer, or the REST, okay, we can know about how this model can be transferred throughout the World Wide Web. Okay? And it's now being a web protocol standard, and there are many web services nowadays using these REST-based web services. For example, if you are doing with the online shopping, okay, if you are having one shop in Kupang or in G Market, they provide this kind of API for you as a supplier. Search services, dictionary services, yeah, they have this kind of API. So I just want to give very short information about the comparison between the SOAP and REST. So you may get some understanding why we need to learn REST. Yeah? So in the SOAP, it is using a protocol, but in the REST, it is more architectural style. And then if you are using the SOAP, is more function driven. So you need to everything dealing with the dot something. Okay. So for example, you want to get, so you need to get something, dot get something, or you want to retrieve, so you need to dot retrieve something. Okay. So that kind of things is function driven. But if you are doing the rest, it is more data driven. So once you know the attribute name, for example, dot name, yeah, you don't need to access the method, but you can just go to the attribute, and the attribute is already set, whether it is public or private. Okay. And so it only provides the XML, but the REST framework now they permit any data format, so including plain text, HTML, XML, and JSON. So that's why the REST framework is much better nowadays, and many websites provide more on the REST framework rather than XML. And in the SOAP, they still use the old kind of security like the web service security and SSL. In the REST framework, they are using the latest security. So if you can see some website, they provide HTTPS. So S means the security. So that's why many websites, they use the REST because it is more secure. And bandwidth, yeah, I'm not the expert on this domain, but some expert mentioned that it requires more resources and bandwidth. But in the REST API, it is lightweight, so it's you can use fewer resources, and the data cannot be cached. Cache means you cannot access any client computer. But in the REST API, you can cache, so you can put in any devices. Yeah, and so on. Okay, so I think I will not discuss about the payload and the ACID compliance, but from this comparison, you can see that this REST framework is superior, or yeah, it's much better than the SOAP framework, which is the old version of the protocol. So without dealing with the concept more, I guess it's just better to see the example. Of course, this example is not a complex example. I will just give you a very simple example how to use the REST framework. So before we do the example, it is good to install the framework. So we are going to use the Django REST framework, okay? And it is the website. If you want to check more details, you can just go to the website. But let's do this one in your PyCharm. Okay, so we already have the PyCharm before, and in this PyCharm, we already built the Python file. So we already have the JSON and we have the XML file here. So in this example, let's try to install the Django REST framework as written in the PowerPoint. So you can go to your Python console. Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I think I have not changed this one. Oh, not. I think it's not the Python console. Okay, let me just fix this one first. Okay. So let me just fix this one first. I need to go to the terminal. Okay, so this terminal is the terminal in Microsoft Windows. So I'm using Windows, so I need to go to this terminal. I think it's the same with your operating system. If you're using the Windows, you will see like this one. If you're using the Mac OS, I'm not that sure, but let's see. If you need to install this one, you need to use the pip install, pip install Django REST framework. Okay, so this one will install the Django REST framework for your system. Okay, and after you have this one, let's see one by one about the step. So you can use the project basic REST that we already created. Now we need to make an app. Okay. Yeah, in the PowerPoint, we learn from the PowerPoint before the mid exam. We learn when we created an app, we can just use the start app. Okay, we make the app from the scratch by with the command start app. But you can have another way to create this kind of app. Let's try. Okay, let's try with this one. If there's an error, let's handle it together. Okay. So here you can make a folder post. Okay, POSTS. Let's see if I want to use this one. So I can make a new folder, and let's make the new folder as you can make as a Python package. Okay. Yeah, just make a Python package. That's fine. Also, if you want to make it as a just a kind of folder, that's also fine, but let's just make it with the Python package. Okay. And then you will see that we need to make models.py. So you already know in your mid exam you need to make these models as a database. So I will use also this one as the database. So this PyCharm, if you are not using the creating the app from the scratch, so start app, you will not see any files here. So you can build your own files. Let's say I do not want to put many files here, because when you use the start app, you will see a lot of files. Okay, so in this case, I will just try to minimize those files. And then, yeah, I have these models, and you can see there are four. Okay. So there are four attributes. Okay. So the title, content, created at, updated at. Okay. And then after you have the models, okay, you can take a look on the next step, which is about the admin. So we need to manage the admin. Okay? So if we want to manage the admin, we need to call the admin, and then we need to register. So this is a way to register our model into the web. So using this one and create a file admin.py in the folder post. Okay. So in the folder post, you can create an admin API admin.py. So you will have this code. Okay. So the Django.contrib import admin, we are going to access the admin, and then we are going to use the models from this post, and then we are going to use the class post. So we are going to register the post in the admin section. Okay. After you finish with this admin, Yeah, you can set the post in the settings.py. Okay. So this install apps, it means you want to specify what kind of apps you want to access during the web application. So you can go to the settings. So in the settings.py, you can add one more app. Okay, this install app, you can add one more app here. So it is the post. Okay. And after you have the post, yeah, actually we need to add one more later, but let's see. So we can do the basic REST example, and we can do the make migrations and then migrate. Okay, you know about those stuffs. So we can just go to this PyCharm, and then if you want to properly run all those things, so you can just go to the run manage.py. Okay. So if you still remember in the previous in the previous lectures, you always use the Python manage.py and then make migrations, and then you also use Python manage.py migrate. Okay. If you are using this tool, okay, so if you have the run manage.py task, it will automatically show you the Python manage.py. So you don't need to type this one, okay, and you can just do the make migration. And what is the app? So the app name is post. Okay, so you can just run this one, and yeah, it will create the model. Okay, so it will create one model here. So you can see there's the model here, and then after you finish with this post, you can just do the migrate. Oops. Okay, you can just do the migrate. Okay, and it will run for every of those. Okay. Then everything now is already set up, and you can use this application. And then let's take a look on the next step. Okay, we need to create the super user. Okay, so you can, if you still remember how we can create the super user. Okay, let's see if we can create from here. Okay, create super user. So you can define by yourself. Okay, maybe let me use user or admin. Okay, I can just use admin. Okay, and then email address, maybe admin at example.com. Okay, I don't care with the name now. Password. Okay, password. Maybe it will be better to follow the PowerPoint because I'm very bad on my memory. So I will just use the password from the PowerPoint. I will just mention IME203. Okay. Oh, of IME203. Okay, then finish. I have a new admin account, and then it has the password. So if you set up with that one, then you can check on the PowerPoint. So you can go to the admin page. Okay, and then let's have three data. Okay, first post, hello world, second post, function world, and the third post is, yeah, just for example, algorithm world. Okay. Okay, let's go to the okay, I need to run the PyCharm first. Okay, let's see if I have any errors here. Oops. Oh, I'm still using the reading JSON, so I need to use the project here. So you need to change to the project basic REST, and then you can run. Okay, there is no problem with the system. I guess we can run in the web, and let's see. Oh, wait, okay. So I will just go to the admin, and then I have the admin, and then I have IME203 for the password, and you can see there's post here. So I would like to add. Okay. Yeah, because I need to have the first post. Okay. What is the first post? Okay. Oh, hello world. Okay. Yeah, just type the hello world. Oh, hello world. Okay, and then I will save it. Okay, and then let's say I have another which is second post about function world. Okay, so let me just make another post, second post, and then I have, what is it, function world. Okay, and then I have the third post. Let's say this one is the what was that? Oh, algorithm word. Okay. Yeah, it's up to you. You can type anything. Yeah, I just want to follow the things that I already wrote in the PowerPoint. So you have 3 posts. Okay, and then let's check what we need to do next is yeah, you can put the REST framework. Okay, you can put the REST framework in the setting. So you have this one. This is the additional one. You can put it into the setting part. So after you have the post, yeah, you have the REST framework here. Okay, and after you have the REST framework, it seems there is no issue with that one. And then yeah, you can make a new file which called by serializers.py. Okay, so this serializers means we want to show the data content into the web. Okay, and we need to use these serializers to make sure that everything that we have in our data can be shown in the web with the REST API. So we using the REST framework. Let's make serializers.py. So this has been embedded into one Python file. This is the serializers. Okay. That's why we need to use this serializers, and this will be the file to access, and yeah, this what we call as the embedding into this serializers.python. So you can go to this PyCharm, and then you can make a new file. So you can make a new file here, serializers with S. Okay. And then yeah, in this file, you can just copy it from the PowerPoint and paste into this file. So we are going to add the information from the data. So here I want to serializer from the models, and the models is from the class post, and the fields that I want to show is this one, the ID, the title, content. So the title and the contents are the data that we just added into the admin page, created ad and updated ad. Yeah, just about the time. Okay, because I don't set any time. Maybe if you want to set the time to Korean time, yeah, that's also fine. But if you're not setting any time, maybe the time is a little bit, maybe it will follow the UTC or something. Okay. So if you continue, you need to make a views.py. Okay. So copy and paste this one. The same with the previous examples. We need to set how we can view it into the web page. So you can copy and paste this one into the file views.py. So you need to create a new file, views.py. So make the new file views.py. Here is the views.py. So in this case, you are using the model post, and then you are using the post serializer. it means you want to use the existing code serializers, and then you want to show all objects from the class post. And then this is the class to serializers. You will see later in the REST API, you will see the serialize of the data. And also about the detail, yeah, we want to see all this detail. After you do this views.py, yeah, you still remember we need to set the URLs. So the URLs in the post, okay, you can just set this one. Let's make this one in the PyCharm. You can make the urls.py here. Okay, and after you have this urls.py, you can see here, if you are accessing the whole data, it means you can see 3 data. But if you want to show the detail of one specific data, then you can access, for example, the first data, then you will see the detail on the first data. So that's the meaning of this URLs. And after you have the URLs in your data, don't forget that you need to put you need to put this API. Okay, yeah, I just make it as an API. So this API will include the URLs in the post. Okay, so if I can just do this one into the PyCharm. So you go to the URLs here, the basic REST. And then yeah, you can include one more line here. And then of course there's an error because you need to import the include. Okay. So after you import this include, I guess that's all for the first step. Okay. And let's try. Okay. Let me check. Is there any error? Okay, there is no error from the PyCharm side. So if you want to check on your website, so let's see. Yes, now you can see that this is the data. So you will see this is the ID1, this is the ID2, this is ID3, and yeah, we can see the data in the web. So we don't need to access the database like what we did before. We don't need to set up the database in SQLite, but we can just show all this one into the web. And this is based on the Django REST framework. If you want to access like the data one, okay, then you will see the data on ID1. Okay. If you want to see the data 2, then you can see the data ID2. Okay. Yeah, you can have the idea about this basic REST example. Yeah, if you are accessing the one, then you can get the ID1. So this REST framework can also do with the CRUD. Okay, you can create, read, update, and delete. So when it comes to CRUD, so you need to use a specific generic view from the REST framework. So if you remember what I explained about CRUD, in the operation create, so you can use insert, but in the HTTP you will use put or push. If it is read or retrieve, you can use get. If you update, you can use put, post, or patch. If you delete, you can use delete. But in the REST framework, they have this kind of API. We want to view, or we want to retrieve, okay? Or we want to destroy. So it means if we want to delete, or we want to update, or we want to list create. So we want to read and then we want to view. Okay, so we want to, we want to read and we want to write. So there are two functions here. And then if we retrieve update, so it means we want to read or update, or we want to read, retrieve and destroy. So read and delete. We want to retrieve, update, destroy. So there might be three functions: read, add and delete. So in that case, you can just change this one. So now you're using the list API view, okay, and you use the retrieve API view in the views.py. So if you change that one, okay, let's see, if you change this views.py, now you are using this retrieve API view. Okay, maybe I will just put here. Okay. You can change this to the retrieve update destroy API view. And let's say this one, I will keep this one as well. And I will update with this one. So I use the list create API view. Okay. Now, what happened after I update with those one? So you can check if we are in this API. Now, you can see a form. So in this form, you can create anything. Okay. Let's say 4 posts. I want to have a 4 posts, additional data, for example. Okay. Then after you post this, you can see that this is the new data. Okay. So if you just show the cat, then you will see all the data again. Okay, the data number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then if you want to see the raw data, yeah, this is the raw data. There is no information, but it is in the HTML form. And then if you go to, for example, one data set like number 4, you can see there is an option like delete. Again, you can update as well. So additional data for update, for example. And then if you want to update this one, you can just put, and the data now is being updated. Okay, so with this REST framework, you can also give this user interface. It's more convenient to add the data, and you don't need to give the access to the user. For example, you don't need to give the admin section. Okay, so you just give this link, and then every user can access, and they can give the data, and they can upload, they can update, and they can do any CRUD system for the data without any details about the password from the admin. Okay, so that's the thing about the REST framework. And I guess it's very challenging for you to apply this one, but this is the basic REST framework, and I hope that you can learn more from the big project. And I will stop here, and I will continue the remaining section in other video. Okay, so thank you very much for listening, and see you in other video.